How you doing? Okay, so people have been emailing me saying that they have trouble with the hanging hair test and they want a little video with the hanging hair test. So here we go. We've got a couple of the wife's hairbrush hairs. This one looks pretty good. This one's not bad. You want to get a hair that's not too coarse, not too fine, not too short. So if you don't have that on your head, go to a barber shop or something, but you need to have a hair that's appropriate to the test. This is an unopened Dovo 6/8 best quality razor, so let's see how it does right out the bat. Now, it won't work with the oil on it, whether it's the oil that I put on the razor after I send it to you or the oil that comes from the factory, whatever. If it's oily, it's not going to work. So, take a towel and wipe away from the edge. Maybe you strop it a couple of times. This is the very first time I'm trying the hanging hair test with a Dovo without stropping it right out of the box. Now, probably sold a couple thousand of them, and once you strop them, they always do pretty well, but I don't know how well it'll do without a stropping. Okay, so you got to hold the hair so that the root is away from your hand, and you can usually feel the root, and the part that grows away from your head is always finer. Okay, so the root is down here, because the hairs have little shingles on them as they grow, and the edge is trying to catch those shingles. Okay, so you pinch the hair. If the hair is real dry, moisten your fingers and pull it through like that before you try it. Can't be too old and dry. But hold the hair like this. Let's see if it shows up on this little screen. Yeah, it's not so bad. Okay, and you hold the razor, and you want to bring down the hair fast onto the razor. Some people do it like they're playing a violin on a bow. That works too. I like to just bring it down real fast because I can see the moment of signature when it's cutting easier than when you do it with the violin way. So if it's good and sharp, we should see it divide pretty much instantly. We don't want to see it hang on there for a split second and then catch. We want to see a nice crisp cut, not like a splicing, but a nice defined cut. And this one did it pretty good there. Let's see. So there you go. So this one passed. Although I still hone every razor with water on a plain caudicle, I would shave with this razor and expect it to shave very well. And I know there's some debate on the internet about that. People say that you can't use this as an arbiter for whether or not a razor will be comfortable, and I would actually agree to some extent because, for example, the Shapton 30,000 stone is the finest edge I've ever seen under a microscope, and if I were to do that test with that Shapton, it would cut even faster than what we just saw with an even louder pitch noise, and it might even cut in a way that we don't even hear it make the noise. But nonetheless, even though I would consider that definitely ready for shaving, I personally wouldn't find it to be the most comfortable. But this is another thing I would say about it, is that for any given hair and any given razor and a given user, so you're the same guy holding the same hair and on the same razor, when you see the same hair react differently to that razor, that means you have incrementally increased the keenness of the edge of that razor. There's just no doubt about it. I don't know, I can't understand how people could debate that. That's the silliest thing I ever heard. And I've shaved off this hanging hair test hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I have never had a razor pass the test in the way that we saw that shaved me poorly, and I have never had a good shave from a razor that didn't pass the test. Now, what would it do if we had a razor that wasn't passing the test? You would put it on there and it would just like ignore the edge probably. Or when you put it on there, it would hold on for a split second and then sort of break the hair in two, but not completely break it nice and clean. Those are the things that you look for. And then also, if if it's doing it really well, that pitch noise that we saw when we brought it down will get higher and higher, and the moment of severing will seem briefer and briefer, or maybe more violent. And then what I consider the holy grail of this test is that I can't even hone a razor to show you, but the razor will cut the hair, and you wouldn't even see the moment that it severs. You just bring it down, and all of a sudden it just magically goes in two. No sound or anything. I've only had razors that I've honed do that a small handful of times, and yes, every time I've gotten that off a cuticle, it has given me an amazing shave. But I just don't think it's practical for any user to expect of any vendor to be sending out razors like that. That is a very hard thing to achieve. Another thing I would say is that singing razors, the really extra hollow ground ones, they are much more finicky on this test than thicker grind razors like a wedge razor. So a wedge razor, which has if you look at it like this, this part would be real thick and a continuous progression, as opposed to something like this one where it gets skinny real quick. Wedge razors, they do real well on the test. Even when they're not that sharp, they seem like they can come close to the mythical hanging hair test number 5. But I don't find that they shave comfortably, whereas singing razors are very finicky about the test, but they always shave more comfortably. So it's a test that's good for, like I said earlier, any particular user, razor, and hair being all the same thing. One last thing I want to say about this test is that when you're when you're restoring an old razor to make it shaving sharp, you can't use the hanging hair test as the arbiter whether or not it's going to be comfortable, because that old edge probably has some bevel pits in it. So like the edge might have little deviations from a straight line, and that straight line might be very straight and thin, and thus the hanging hair test passes, but you're not hitting the edge right on that spot where there's a little divot. So you could have something that did real well in the hanging hair test, which would still nonetheless act like a serrated edge and give you a bad shaving result. So when you use an old razor and you're restoring it, that's a key reason why people intentionally dull them on glass, because they're rounding that bevel so much that they're going to make it so that by the time they get rid of that rounded edge and get to a shaving sharp edge again, that there'll be no chance for any pits.